Welcome to the Tony Frida Show. Tony Frida here, and welcome to another episode of Thought Crime Thursday. If it's Thursday, it's Thought Crimes. And my thought crimes today are focusing on more of my decoding of American symbols. And just want to make it clear that all these symbols, like the flag or Statue of Liberty or dollar sign, they all have this obvious exoteric meaning, right? Which is like Statue of Liberty stands for liberty. What else could it stand for? Flag stands for America, right? So I'm more interested in the esoteric meaning. Now, things can have two meanings, and the people who design these are well aware of that. Now, why would they design things with two meanings, an esoteric and an exoteric? Well, symbols have a power that the subconscious processes before language. When we see symbols, the geometry, color, and archetypes all resonate with us, in a way that we react to beyond language, before language, right? We see the color red, we react to that viscerally and instinctually before we have any language involved. These symbols are more powerful and atavistic than language. So the idea is to shape attitudes without conscious agreement or consent from us. That's why it's covert and not overt. So the esoteric meaning of these symbols is very important to me. And they shape our attitudes and our consciousness by repetition. Constant repetition of these symbols ingrains them in our subconscious, and we have our attitudes shaped by the people who design our culture below the threshold of our perception. So that's the basic idea. And they have their own nefarious purposes for doing that, to exert their control. And another reason is they have two meanings: is plausible deniability, right? They can say, like, no, obviously Statue of Liberty means liberty. What else could it possibly mean? You're a crazy conspiracy theorist. Another reason is this idea, very important concept, called revelation of the method. Now, people who are occult elitists, transhumanists, Satanists, Epstein Island people, right? Whatever you want to call them, they're not nice. And they're obsessed with power. They look at us like a parallel species. Carl Jung called them schizoid tyrants. Whatever you want to call them, they're the bad guys, okay? And there's this idea of revelation of the method. They believe that they have this ethical and moral responsibility within their own satanic understanding of the cosmos to the way they get out of having any sort of moral guilt or any sort of connection or obligation or responsibility morally to hurting us is by telling us. They tell us through these symbols, and that assuages their guilt, and it gives them this moral pass in their minds. So they have to tell us one way or another, and in their minds, that absolves them of any guilt of wrongdoing because, hey, we told you, and you're just too stupid to figure it out. So that's on you. So they reveal their method without complete disclosure. It's revelation without disclosure. You have to satisfy this karmic or ethical requirement. The initiates know about it, and we don't. So there's two categories of people. The initiates know what's going on. They're insiders, and these symbols are like passwords that they tell each other what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And we get to learn what they're going to do through this process of symbolic representation and messaging and repetition. It's also called double coding. It's layered esoteric meaning. So symbols can be used for good or for evil. The symbol itself is neutral, but it's the intent behind it, right? Some of these are designed to create confusion on a subconscious level and guide us to certain conclusions and understandings of the world and our place in it. So double coding again, there's the esoteric overt, exoteric is the overt, and there's a subtext which is the esoteric. So there's a spiritual deception involved. So you repeat the symbols, and that creates desired emotional responses through repetition, and then that causes automatic behavior, and then conditions consciousness because symbols bypass rational thinking. So I hope I explained that well. So some of the symbols I want to talk about today are symbols that I use a lot in my artwork, which I give a meaning that's beyond the esoteric. I just sort of distill it and try to make commentary about what's going on in society, using these symbols that were designed in many instances to have this double meaning. So everybody knows this symbol, right? Peace, man. So this started as the victory symbol, right? Winston Churchill, V for victory. Never surrender. Can't do a Winston Churchill accent, but anyway, old Winnie was quite a character. He would show this sign and he had this slogan, keep buggering on. Now, that's a sign or a slogan that's pregnant with some very disturbing meaning, if you know what buggering is. And he was apparently a buggerer. But there is this obvious sexual meaning to this, right? He said it meant the exoteric meaning was victory. Then the hippies took it and they turned it into peace. So this symbol became very, very, very well used symbol for various purposes. But there are other meanings too. And you can look at it as a symbol of duality, right? 1, 2. Now, some people look at that as a negation of the monotheistic idea because there's duality, there's polarity. This is a rejection of monotheism. But there's also other meanings. It's a fourth symbol, right? It could mean the devil horns, if you want to get satanic about it. Division, a forked path in the road, right? The devil will meet you at the crossroads. Sexual, feminine energy. I mean, this is could symbolize spread appendages. I don't want to get crass, but it's a union of opposing forces in duality. This is elite symbolic communication. There's hermetic principle of polarity, and esoteric is about dividing nature into polarity. So this double coding works perfectly with this symbol, and the darker interpretation of it, especially the Winnie Churchill part, is that it's about domination, sexual domination, mostly men and children. Domination, humiliation, where the sacred becomes profane. So Churchill was he was a very interesting character. So that's that peace symbol. I use it in a lot of my work, which I'm going to flash on the screens for you to enjoy. The other symbol is for the same thing, peace, right? Peace, man. I drew it crooked, but sorry about that. But, so this is the peace sign, and ostensibly, supposedly, it is a symbol of peace. It was originally, the designer said he designed it as a symbol of nuclear disarmament, right? It was 2 semaphores for N and D put together, and it made this symbol for nuclear disarmament. That's the official story. But there's other meanings. If you look at it, it's this negative energy flowing down. It's not going up to God, it's going down to a bad place. So it's also considered, could be a broken cross. and that's an anti-Christian symbol. The energy flowing downward represents moving away from God, an inversion. It's an inversion principle. It's like the Satanists turn the cross upside down. The law of reversal, the inversion principle, is very important to understanding the esoteric symbolism that I'm talking about. So that symbol is very interesting because all these peace signs are interesting because they were co-opted by the peace movement and the hippie movement, but there's a larger, broader social context to their movement, right? It was about free love and rejecting the established order and rejecting authority of the day. And many say rejecting Christianity and Christian values and Judeo-Christian values. And that was some sort of a turning point in American culture where the floodgates opened, right? Porn became legal and mainstream, and free love and drug use. And we all know how the hippie movement ended with this guy named Charlie Manson, who took these ideas of free love and experimentation with consciousness altering drugs and took it to its darkest iteration of murder and mayhem. Helter skelter. So some people look at those symbols as very dark symbols. Again, the inversion principle is supposed to be about peace and love and hippie stuff, but it's actually about something much darker. Another symbol I wanted to talk to you about is this guy, Statue of Liberty, right? Again, what else could it mean except liberty? But it's a very interesting symbol if you look at it. Some people think it is, some esoteric researchers believe that it is a fertility goddess or Satan himself, Lucifer, because Lucifer means light bearer. Luca, light, and in Latin, light bearer means Lucifer. So obviously we have the light bearer here, and she's got a crown with 7 spikes on it. What do those 7 spikes represent? 7 spikes represent rays of sun, the rays of God, and this false illumination, right? This sort of goddess worship. Maybe she represents, people think, Ishtar or Isis or Columbia. It's about goddess worship. And the guy who originally designed this was Frederick Bartholdi. Now, this is interesting because he originally proposed a giant lighthouse statue at the entrance of the Suez Canal, which was completed in 1860. And this original sculpture was supposed to be a Muslim Egyptian peasant called a fellaha, and she was carrying a torch. And so there's a Muslim connection to it. So it's interesting now that we've gone full circle where there's a Muslim mayor in New York, and who would have thunk that? But that's where we are. So when that project failed, the symbolism supposedly was transplanted onto the New York Harbor. The statue is facing east. Obviously, the shroud is reminiscent of a Muslim female garb, and it has chains on the bottom of her feet. The chains symbolize breaking free from divine law, right? Breaking free from one form of bondage to another. The torch is illuminating hidden knowledge, but only to the initiates. The crown of the sun rays, 7 spikes. 7 is a number of manifestation, 7 chakras. So there's so many meanings this Statue of Liberty is pregnant with that is fascinating. But again, I say, the esoteric meaning, instead of liberty, it means the opposite. It's the inversion principle. It's talking about slavery. All right, the peace sign, instead of peace, is talking about hidden power. When you have these symbols talk about initiation, hidden power, occult wisdom, and hierarchy. The inverse of what they're ostensibly supposed to symbolize. So this double coding or dual coding idea is, I think, underpinning all of this. Revelation of the method, plausible deniability. So, what was another symbol I wanted to talk about? Oh, the stop sign, one of my favorites. So the stop sign, uh, stop sign, you have this octagon, right? It's a red octagon. So again, your brain and your atavistic instincts see that red and process the red as a signal of danger and blood before any words can reach your mind. You've already processed it on an emotional level. And through endless repetition, you get this habituated response to stop. It's a command. It's red for a reason. Hexagon, I mean, the octagon is a symbol of control. The red is a symbol of war and blood, obviously. And this is a command symbol. And it's unbelievable to me because the power of it, right? Because, I mean, people will stop. I get in a lot of trouble for this. I'll look around and there's nobody anywhere. There's no bicycles, there's no doggies, there's no people, there's no cars on the four-way intersection. I clearly see. So I'll roll through the stop sign. And because I have oppositional defiant disorder, I think, but I'm not habituated to these symbols. And I don't like taking orders from a sign. I can look around myself and say this is safe or it's not safe to proceed. But usually when I do, there's a cop hiding behind a bush. And I get in a lot of trouble. But so don't do that at home, kids. But I think it would be an interesting experiment. If you had like out in the middle of the desert, right? You've been out west, driving out west, and just say you're driving down a road where you could see for miles. It's totally flat. There's nothing. And if you were going down a road and they put a stop sign, I wonder what percentage of people would stop, even though it's clear that you're in the middle of nowhere. There's no people, there's no animals, there's no cops, there's nothing. And I bet a certain amount of people, because we've been habituated, we've been dog trained into submission and to obedience. A lot of these symbols are about ingraining this idea of obedience to authority to us. And I bet you a lot of people would stop. And that's a sad commentary on us, but it's also testament to the power that these symbols have and the power the people who are in power have to control us and to manipulate us in ways that we're not even aware of consciously, through the use of symbolism, through repetition, and through this idea of double coding. So that's just a few things I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope you enjoy my imagery, and I want you to be aware of these symbols because they're everywhere. And there's messages that are being imparted to you below the threshold of your conscious perception. The symbols designed to change your behavior and to control your behavior through repetition and through this subconscious symbolic messaging and language. And that's happening everywhere and every day. So be aware of the symbols and don't drink the Kool-Aid. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. And I will see you soon. Next week's going to be a special episode. I'm going to disclose some of my deepest, darkest thought crimes. So you might want to tune in for that one. It won't be for the faint of heart. All right. Thanks so much, and God bless.